Hello, my name is Jeremy, just your average everyday guy. That is until sometime in my early 30s, I developed a spinal condition known as ankylosing spondylitis. It took me from this, 6 foot tall, to this, not 6 foot tall. But I wasn't going to let that get me down forever, so eventually I kicked some bad habits and started fighting back. I still get some pretty strange looks, but I'm now doing what I love, traveling and adventuring. My goal is to show other people with disabilities or anyone facing challenges that your best days don't have to be behind you and that there's always hope. So thanks for joining me, the Handicapped Hiker.
On the last episode, I hiked to Chain Rock at Pine Mountain State Park in Kentucky, followed by the Pinnacle Overlook and Tri-State Point in Cumberland Gap National Historical Park. After a quick stop at Black Mountain, Kentucky's highest point, and a good night's rest in Virginia, I took on 9 miles of the Appalachian Trail and summited Mount Rogers. Immediately following the Mount Rogers hike, I made the 4-hour drive to Weston, West Virginia. And just as I had expected, I'm getting off to a pretty sore start this morning. Up first, on this last day of a very long year of travel, is a 90-minute drive to Blackwater Falls State Park, near Davis, West Virginia.
Okay, so last night we stayed at a Super 8 by Wyndham here in Weston, West Virginia. Last day, everybody, that was the last hotel stay, last day of shooting, and then we go home and start editing and editing and editing. I have been on the road since June. I'm looking forward to a day with no alarm clock at all and no obligations and having nothing that I have to do all day.
The trail and boardwalk down to the lower overlook is slightly under a half-mile round trip. There is a wheelchair-accessible trail on the other side of the river that leads to a higher overlook. This is the highest state park in West Virginia by elevation and protects nearly 2,400 acres. Established in 1937, the main attraction, of course, is Blackwater Falls on the Blackwater River at the head of Blackwater Canyon. This is one of the most photographed places in the state and popular on many postcards and wall calendars. At 62 feet high, these are the highest above-ground falls in the state. And yeah, it's a little hard to believe there are taller falls underground, but if it's on the internet, it has to be true. This park has many smaller waterfalls and other popular trails, a couple of which are wheelchair accessible. There's also a lodge, rental cabins, a campground, nature center, restaurants, a small lake with a beach, and a cross-country ski center. This looked like a very nice park, and I probably should have spent a little more time here. But I'm just in a hurry to get home, and I've got one more big hike on my radar for today.
Starting to fill up now. Got here just in time again.
So with that, let's head north about 20 minutes to the ironically named Backbone Mountain. Alright, pretty overcast day today, but at least it's not raining. At least it's not snowing. We are in the mountains. It is October. Can't wait to get this car emptied out, vacuumed and cleaned, and figure out what we're gonna do for the next road trip. The bed that I configured in the car for this trip, it worked. It was a little higher in the car than I wanted it to be, I think. It did not give me a lot of room between the bed surface and the ceiling of the vehicle. Made it kind of difficult to flop from side to side, as I have to do when I sleep. I need to flip from side to side throughout the night. Not very easy with this bed being so close to the ceiling. I'm not really claustrophobic. It was just very tight space. And you know, like on a rainy day at a campground, there was nothing I could do except sleep in the bed or sit in the front driver's seat here to do work. And it was just extremely uncomfortable. Ideally, I would love to get a van. It doesn't have to be a high roof van like everyone else is doing. Something that I could put a hard, like a laminate floor inside it and sit in a computer chair and have my head clear the ceiling and have a little bit of leg room, some breathing room. Yeah, so I mean, this worked out, but it wasn't perfect. I can make it a little better if we choose to continue using the vehicle, which I shouldn't say that too loud. She'll get offended on me on my last drive home. Ideally, a regular roof height passenger van would be perfect. I would just take all the back passenger seats out, put a hardwood floor down, fashion some sort of bed, kitchenette, bathroom. Very small, very simple, very utilitarian. This trail is just under 3 miles total out and back, with 688 feet of elevation gain. It begins here on US Route 219 in West Virginia and crosses into Maryland near the top. It leads to Hoye Crest, the highest point in Maryland.
Alright, here we go. Last one. Last one. Months on the road. This is our last one. Looks like there's a really nice house up there too. Yeah, I could handle living there. Well, so far, the trail's not bad. It's just a gradual uphill grade. I think I'm just worn out from yesterday still. We're gonna make it, but I'm worn out. Slow going. Take it easy.
The long ridge of Backbone Mountain stretches 39 miles, and part of it sits along the Eastern Continental Divide, meaning water on one side flows to the Youghiogheny River and eventually to the mighty Mississippi. Water on the other side drains into the Potomac River and Chesapeake Bay watershed, finding its way to the Atlantic Ocean.
I'm huffing and puffing. We are now entering Maryland. Well, I've looked everywhere. I don't think there's a pin here. There's a sign, but I don't think there's a pin. I don't think I'm missing it. I just don't think there is one here. No pin. Okay, well, our next location is home. And I'm ready. There's a marker. Huh. Okay. That's cool. Let's see here. Number 3. Okay, so 1910. This is Maryland. And I'm guessing this side hidden over here. This is West Virginia. Yes, it does. Okay. Down there is the state border marker.
It still amazes me how they got all of these markers out into the wilderness all over the country, and how accurately they found all of these places with such primitive tools and equipment back in the day. Determination like that is a rare and valuable thing these days.
Oh gosh. Let's get down out of here. Down we go off of this mountain. And that was the Maryland high point, Hoye Crest, Backbone Mountain, fittingly named for my last one. Our next stop is home. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel good about going home because it's so familiar. I love being on the road. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love seeing this country. This is just a truly unbelievable, amazing country we have here. And I love exploring it. There are still so many hiking trails I haven't touched yet. So many places I haven't seen. I love doing this. Unfortunately, it costs money, and I don't have a lot of money. I saved up just enough to squeeze by until Social Security age, living a very modest, simple lifestyle, which I mentioned before is how I like it. I like keeping things simple and modest and easy to maintain. I don't want the boat and the RV and the big house with multiple bedrooms and 2 cars and a truck. That's not me. Because what makes me happy is being out here doing this. It's definitely, it's getting into fall now. The nights are getting colder. Camping is no longer an option for me. The cold, my back and my bones do not do well in cold weather. So, we've been all over the country this year since June. We've been to a lot of places and have done a lot of things. It's been spectacular, but it's time to go home and figure out the next steps. It's time to go home and figure it out. So we got a lot of work ahead of us, but gosh, it's hard to stop doing this. It's hard to know there is no other location tomorrow. But it's also good to know that I get to go home, take a long hot shower, cook a meal in my own kitchen, and sleep in my own bed. All right. I don't know, it's a weird feeling, but it's just time. It's time to go home.
And just like that, Season 2 is in the books. It's time for me to get home and buckle down for the harsh Northeast Ohio winter. I'll be spending the next several months planning and booking my Season 3 road trip and training for bigger adventures to come. But don't worry, we'll all be back on the road in no time. Until then, let's take a look back at some of the incredible places we explored together in Season 2.